All right, we're back here with another review of Loki, Season 1, Episode 3 here today. I almost said Episode 4. This was called Lamentis. Probably the best episode yet, even though, as we were discussing right before we went live here, some people thought it was the worst. It was boring. I don't know what the fuck those people are smoking, but this was a good episode. We got a lot to get into. A lot of big reveals, too, towards the end of it. But yeah, let's get into the guest. Chris, you're here, as always, at BR_doctor on the Twitter machine. Chris, what's going on, dude?
Oh, not too much.
Phil, you're back as well. Phil DL616 on Twitter. Phil, what's going on, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. And we got a very special guest, our first special guest here of the Loki portion of our reviews. We've had people on before to discuss WandaVision, all the movies, Falcon Winter Soldier. But for the first time talking Loki here today, we got Ben Cruz. Ben, what's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm not that special. I'm just another variant, so I appreciate you guys having me on.
So what is your variant Twitter account name?
My variant Twitter account name is @CruiseControl. It's control with a K. See, it's variant because I couldn't get the original spelling because it was taken. So I'm not the original.
Okay, that would make sense. So we got a lot of Loki, variant stuff to get into because, like I said, there were a lot of reveals on the show. But before we go with any further with that, I kind of asked this to a lot of the people that we have on here for the first time. But Ben, talk about your Marvel fandom. I know I just asked you about it a second ago before we went live here, but I didn't even know you were a Marvel fan, and I'm glad we had you here on the show to discuss this. But talk about your Marvel fandom and kind of where it started and your thoughts and everything, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it started when I was a kid for sure. Comic books weren't really allowed in my house yet, but my older cousin snuck me a couple. I think he was like 13 and I was 8, and he would, whenever he was done with them, he would just pass them on to me, and that's kind of how I got into the whole Marvel universe. Then obviously I grew up with X-Men, Spider-Man, all on Fox Kids. So and now rewatching those is incredible, right? So that's how kind of my journey started. And then once all the movies started to drop, it was just a natural transition from kind of all of that to now this whole universe. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey, and I hope it never ends.
Have you been digging the shows we've been getting lately on Disney Plus?
Oh yeah. Yeah, very much so. I do think of the 3 that have come out so far, obviously Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to come out first, just sequentially, and that obviously got bumped to second. And I think it almost would have been better for Falcon and the Winter Soldier if it came out first, because I think it would, like the people that I've talked to about it, it's probably their least favorite of the 3, and I don't think it was bad at all. I thought it was actually pretty good. I think the fact that it came out after WandaVision did hurt it a lot, because WandaVision was just incredible. So, but that being said, overall happy with all 3 of them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think the issue with the Falcon Winter Soldier show was the timing, too, because WandaVision ended, and literally within 2 weeks we had the next show. So, I mean, people were still kind of high off the WandaVision stuff. People are still talking about WandaVision 6 months later, so that just kind of goes to show how great of a show it was. But, we discussed Falcon Winter Soldier here for all the episodes they came out with them. We thought it was a great show, but it really speaks volumes as to how good these shows are. If you're saying that's like the weakest one, and that was still like a very, very good show, So Loki, we're only 3 episodes in. It's off to a strong start. There was a lot of stuff in this episode we got to talk about. But a big discussion point that we were kind of discussing last week was the whole Lady Loki, Sylvie thing. Is she Enchantress? We found out here that her name is Sylvie, but is she Enchantress? Chris, can you kind of shed some light on this?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're supposed to know. Like, it almost sounded like she said she changed her name to Sylvie, or Loki jumped to that conclusion and she just let him. But okay. I'm still not 100% clear on whether they're trying to establish this as actually a Loki variant, because the fact that they have different, like, upbringings and, like, almost a different childhood kind of tells me that maybe this isn't actually another Loki. She just is, manipulating him and making him think that for some reason.
Yeah, I just feel like with the show so far, and this is what I've liked about it, they have you looking left when they go right instead, and I kind of got that sense with the first episode when we talked about like the whole propaganda thing with the TVA, which ended up being accurate because we found out in this episode that everyone at the TVA is indeed a variant, even though they established at one point that the timekeepers picked everyone that was in the TVA. So I feel like it's just going to be a series of swerves, with that being the first one, and her backstory. I'm not even saying that it will be a swerve, but there's a very good chance that it might be. And especially with the Loki character himself, it's very fitting, because obviously he's the god of mischief, and everything he said can't really be believed to a certain degree. But what about you, Phil? What were your thoughts on the Lady Loki, Sylvie character on this episode? What are your 2 cents on the whole thing?
I mean, they used the term enchant several times.
They did, so I think
they're trying to lean into her being enchantress. I don't know, like the Loki, like her saying, "Don't call me Loki." I mean, she even ditched the Loki horn at some point in this episode. That makes me think that she might not be a Loki variant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways they can go with this, and we only found out a little bit of her backstory here, and she had even said that, too, because he wanted to find out more about her, and she wouldn't really tell him aside from how her enchantress kind of powers work. But like you said, they used the word enchant many, many times on this episode, which is worth keeping an eye out for. But from episode 1 and 2, which we haven't got your thoughts on yet, Ben, to this episode, what are your thoughts on the progression of the show so far and where you see it going?
Yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I mean, of the 3, again, kind of how I'm looking at the 3 series, this was probably my least favorite, but that's not to say it was bad. Like, it was actually a really, really good episode. I thought it was more transitional than anything, kind of leading into, the back 3. This episode gave me Snowpiercer and like Solo, the Star Wars movie vibes, just because when they're on the train, all these rich people like just drinking and trying to drive away from the Armageddon that's coming. I was, half expecting Dryden Voss to show up, you know what I mean? But I really enjoyed it because you kind of got to know more about Sylvie, right? Like, we still don't know the full thing, but you kind of got to definitely sink your teeth in a little bit more and kind of understand where she's coming from. And same with Loki, right? I think that was awesome, too, to kind of pick both of their brains, essentially. And it was a bit of a slower episode in comparison to 1 and 2, but I think it was definitely necessary to, again, allow us to know who these two are, who it seems like they're just going to be linked together for at least the rest of the series, if not beyond that.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think going in, if you had told me that we weren't getting any Mobius on this episode at all, I probably, for me, of the 3 so far, this was probably my favorite. I probably enjoyed this one the most. But everyone, like Chris and Phil, we're going to get your thoughts as well. But I think, had you told me going in that Mobius wouldn't be in it, I would probably be like, okay, it's probably not going to be as strong. But I ended up really liking the chemistry that he had with Sylvie and how much we found out about her, or as much as we're led to believe, and all this other stuff. And everything that happened with him, I completely 100% agree with you on the Star Wars connection there. Like, if you took a certain scene from this episode and you didn't know it was Loki, like some of the costumes and just the overall vibe of it gave me Solo and Snowpiercer vibes as well. That's a great connection too. Like you said, I was half expecting fucking Darth Maul to show up at some point, but it was still a very good scene. The fighting scene, them jumping out the window was crazy. So yeah, good stuff. But Chris, so we spoke earlier. Ben said this was probably his least favorite. Was this your favorite episode of the season so far? And if so, why was that?
I don't know if it was my favorite. It's like, we only have 3 to choose from now.
Yeah,
but visually, this was the most interesting because we're on like a whole new planet. We're seeing all this crazy destruction around us, and they did a pretty good job with a lot of that, even though you could tell like certain scenes were green screen sets, certain scenes were just a few props around and then some green screen stuff in the background, but it still all looked great. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to the thing you were talking about a minute ago with the enchanting thing. I kind of have a theory. So there's that scene in the beginning of the episode when they end up in the little mining cabin and she like tries to enchant him and he goes, "What are you doing?" And it doesn't work. I think it did work. And I think the fact that she explained it in a way like I have to make them feel like they're in control of the situation almost. Mm-hmm. So like when she enchants him, she immediately makes him think in his brain, "Oh, it's not working and I'm more powerful than you," to put him at ease. Because it seems like all of the ways that they would have gotten off this planet are now screwed. So I almost feel like at some point we're going to see like them get destroyed on the planet, and then all of a sudden it's going to flash back to him just being himself in that cabin, like right after she enchanted him.
I could see that.
It just feels like all of this is a setup for something. Like, I don't think her and him are actually getting along. I think she's pulling his leg, and we're gonna find out that this whole episode was just a big, like, not dream sequence, but like illusion that she created in his head.
Do you think this alliance between them is going to be short-lived?
I do.
Yeah. Do you think,
or at least it won't end up with them teaming up. Like, if she ends up being the Sylvie from the comics and they're trying to do a Young Avengers thing down the line, which we've talked about many times, then, you know, maybe she'll reform or something, or the TVA will give her another chance, and that's another big theory that I have, is that, like, I don't think this is actually the TVA. But that's a whole different conversation.
Well, let's get into that, because they had said that everyone at the TVA is a variant. Where do you think we go from given that information, where do we go from there?
I don't know. I almost feel like somebody is controlling these people and using the TVA as a cover. And, like, maybe we'll actually find out the real Time Variance Authority is watching all of this in, like, the last episode. I don't know. It just, something about this episode made me think, like, everything we've seen so far is just a trick. Like, nothing we've seen is honest, and Loki's being lied to left and right.
Yeah, so I mean, like they said previously in other episodes, or I don't know if it was last episode, but like they had said that everyone at the TVA was handpicked by the Timekeepers. If that's clearly not the case, and they're all just variants instead, it goes back to what we were saying last week. Are there indeed Timekeepers or not? I'm still of the belief that there won't be. I would love for there to be a Timekeeper, just because I loved your idea a couple of weeks ago, Chris, when you said Christopher Lloyd would be a fucking perfect cameo for it, which I don't think we're getting, but that'd be amazing. You know, still, I don't think we're going to get the Timekeepers, so at this point, has your mind changed on that, or no?
I don't know, because if the Timekeepers exist, I don't think they're overseeing this thing that we're seeing. Like, I don't know. Just something about everything feels off. Like, so they've changed so many of the details that comics fans know about the TVA, and that's what makes me think it's not the TVA. It's something else completely. Maybe Mobius is, like, in the dark. I don't think Owen Wilson is necessarily clued into the bigger picture. Maybe what's her name, Ravona, something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe she is, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're getting a Kang cameo by any means, but something crazy will happen in the last episode that kind of ties into the Doctor Strange and Spider-Man stuff that's coming.
So you think, going off what we spoke about last week at length with Iron Man 3, do you think we're getting a fucking Iron Man 3 level swerve here where we think we have a character from the comics, but it's not? Is that what you're telling me right now, Chris?
I mean, I'm almost kind of hoping for that, because if not, then I'm not sure what they're going to work up to that would be a satisfying conclusion. Like, the whole thing about giving Loki his own show is he's the trickster god, yep. So there's got to be a lot of swerves when it comes to a story involving Loki, and I think putting him on the opposite side of that is what's going to make this interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also maybe humble him a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've already seen that. They've already tried to humanize him a little bit in the last couple of episodes so far. So, yeah, no, I completely agree. Phil, what are your 2 cents in the whole TVA thing? Are they feeding us a bunch of bullshit? Where are we going with this?
I definitely, after this episode and the reveal about the employees, quote unquote, of the TVA, I definitely think, like, there's something, like, insidious behind it. And the big tell for me, even before the reveal, was when they got to the elevator and Ravonna was the first person standing in front of the elevator. Everybody else is running off to, take care of all of these branches that are growing out and possibly turning into multiverses, and she's standing right in front of the door protecting the Timekeepers. I was like, yeah, she definitely knows, like, the truth behind what the Timekeepers are. She's probably the only one.
So do you think, she's probably, in my opinion, as we spoke about last week, probably the only one that's in on it, because we found out on this episode that C20, she had said, the Timekeepers are in the elevator, but that doesn't mean that she has seen the Timekeepers. I think it's been revealed that, the other woman was the only one that had ever interacted with the Timekeepers. But anyway, when they had done the flashback thing with Sylvie and the fucking, the enchanting thing, whatever, she had mentioned that was a memory that she had from several hundred years ago. So, and obviously we knew Mobius and the whole jet ski obsession and whatever, so they're clearly all variants from just different time periods. But yeah, she's definitely in on it. Is that to suggest, though, that she is the be-all, end-all of the quote-unquote TVA? Is she the timekeeper? Not the timekeepers, but like, again, like I said when we first started reviewing the show, is this like a Wizard of Oz thing where she's like the Grand Master of it all? That's what we're going to find out. Do you think that's where we might be going with this, Phil?
I don't think that she is the head of it all, but I think she knows who is. I think she's working with whoever is.
Okay. Could that be Kang? Chris said no, but could it be Kang?
I think it's possible it could be Kang. There are too many connections to Kang here. Like, I mean, she has a connection to Kang in the comics. I mean, you could even go into Young Avengers. The main villain of the first arc of Young Avengers is Kang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would seem to make sense. And obviously we're getting closer and closer to that. And we've talked to the Young Avengers before and how they've already planted the seeds for that stuff in the months and years to come with the shows and the movies and everything else. Ben, talk to me about the TVA. What are your thoughts on the whole thing? Do you feel like we're being duped here like everyone else? Like, what's going on with this shit?
I mean, there's definitely something else going on. My biggest issue with where the timekeepers are is that really they're just upstairs. You just got to go up this elevator and
yeah.
Their office is just there. There's like a secretary checking you in. First of all, let's upgrade the security. If the timekeepers are really that important, there was like 2 guys there who didn't really approach Sylvie to stop her from coming until she came up to them. You know what I mean? It's like in basketball. Come meet the ball. And it was just a strange choice. So there's definitely more going on, and especially with the reveal that everyone in the TVA is just a variant. They kind of. The way that Sylvie said it kind of just got pushed to the side, but that was a big takeaway for me. It was just like, hold on. Mobius said that, this is like everyone was created for the TVA, so that kind of obviously is counter to that. But it was just too easy to kind of say that, hey, the timekeepers are just right upstairs, So there's definitely more to what is being presented, and I am interested to see what it is. If it is Kang, I mean, cool, at least there's some sort of payoff there, but if it is some sort of Wizard of Oz situation, I mean, I don't know if I'd mind that either, but I just want some sort of payoff for this, and I hope it's gearing toward that as we kind of wind down here.
Yeah, and not just the payoff, but like a satisfying payoff, because I don't want this fucking Ralph Boner shit. This has got to be like a good level payoff. Like, I want to be satisfied, and the show's been so good. That wasn't even like the main thing in WandaVision. It was just like a side story, obviously. But, you have all these Mephisto theories and everything else, and thankfully I think they learned their lesson with like the interviews and stuff, and like, oh, they're not saying, oh, you're going to get this major cameo in episode 9 or something. Like, they don't have any of that. I had seen Tom Hiddleston say that 4 and 5 were like his favorite episodes to film, but that's not to say like, oh, we're getting this major cameo from blah blah blah. So I think what they've done so far is great, and they're just kind of leaving us in suspense, which is cool. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys too, I don't know if anyone else caught this, at the very end when they're trying to get to the Ark and they're avoiding everything, the building's falling and the whole world is falling apart. There's a building that's falling on top of them, and then Loki stops it. Was that the time stone? Like, did he steal the time stone and like reverse it? Because that's not just some magical power that he has. That's what I was wondering.
I definitely think he has a time stone. Okay. There were 2 things that made me think he has it. When that meteor landed in front of them and they fell for a second, and it seemed like everything stopped, and then they just jumped back up and kept walking like nothing happened. I was like,
okay. Yeah.
And then of course, like you said, when a building fell and it just rewound, I was like, yeah, I think he kept the time stone out of the desk.
Yeah, he had to have been. That's the only explanation, because I'm trying to like justify it in my mind as I'm watching this. I'm like, wait, was that Sylvie's powers? Like, she hasn't shown anything along those lines yet. Like, he definitely doesn't have those powers, and like it's got to be the time stone. Like, that would seem to make sense. And it was the same sort of thing that we were seeing in the same scene at the end of Doctor Strange when he was like reversing buildings and stuff like that. So that's what it made me think of. But Chris, do you think he has the time stone? And if so, do you think it might come in handy for him?
I mean, I questioned whether he actually kept some in that first episode,
yes,
so I wouldn't be surprised if he did. But also, Loki's powers have also been, like, never clearly defined. Like, we know he can do certain things, but it always seems like every once in a while, these magic people can occasionally do something new. So being able to stop a building from falling and then kind of throwing it back up, it wouldn't shock me if they were just like, oh, yeah, he can do that if he has to.
Yeah, maybe. It's very possible it could be revealed as one of his new powers. What about you, Ben? Do you think he has the time stone in his possession?
I mean, yeah. Who among us hasn't stolen office supplies? Like when they're made available to us. You know what I mean? And like he literally had a drawer full of Infinity Stones. Take a couple. You don't know if he's going to get out. So there's definitely something more to that. Again, they kind of, it was toward the end of the episode, so they obviously couldn't address it that much. But there's definitely something else going on, and I think he has it. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt in my mind that's where they're going. I mean, he would have been an absolute idiot to be presented with all these stones that people are using as paperweights in the TVA. Yeah, like you said, like obviously in the TVA they're powerless, and he had to have known he was going to escape at some point, like to use them for whatever reason. And the time stone comes in as handy as probably any of the other ones, so that was a good call on his part, but we'll see where they go with that.
But don't you think he would have then used it to stop the Ark from destroying? Because, like, they see it blow up. Don't you think he would have just been like, oh, let me just do this real quick? Flips back 30 seconds, is like, all right, it's still there.
I mean, but there were several points where he could have used the time stone. When he got thrown out of the train, he could have just used it to get back in.
True.
Who knows? See, there were several points where he didn't use his powers at all in the fight. So, I don't know.
There might be just a logic gap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Possible. I don't know.
Also,
yeah.
Can we talk about how the guys on that train kind of looked like Cobra soldiers from the old G.I. Joe cartoon? Am I the only one that put that together? With, like, the black helmets and the blue outfits with the little bit of red on the shoulder? Like, I don't know if it was an intentional reference, but as soon as I saw it, I'm like, is that a Cobra outfit? What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I was wondering the whole time, like, are the people there Xandarian? Because, like, there are a lot of triangles and stuff. I don't know if that was just me reading too much into it. But, like, even, like, the color and stuff, it just made me think of Xandar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see the Xandar.
I mean,
connection
Lamentis isn't anything I'm familiar with. I don't know if that's a planet they've ever talked about in the comics or if it was just created for the show, but I mean, yeah, it could be like in the same solar system for all we know.
I think it's in a comic because I've definitely heard that name before. I think it's in a comic. I'm just drawing a blank.
I mean, it might be one of those things that showed up once a long time ago and was never mentioned again.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Do you think they'll go back to Lamentis, or is it just something that we'll see in this one episode and that's it in the MCU?
Well, I mean, they're still there, so they have to get them off of that planet somehow at the end of the episode. Yeah. So, like, but like I said, I don't know if all this is just, I think it might just be an enchantment, everything we've seen, and we're going to find out that they're still in that little mining shack, and it's only been like a minute or two.
That would be wild. At this point, I would be surprised, because even when she said the variant thing, it was like one of those things, it's like, with wrestling, like when you know someone's coming back, but when they show up, it's still cool. Like you're still gonna have that pop Markout moment. Like that's what it was for me, even though it wasn't that big of a moment. Like you kind of knew it was coming because we talked about it last week, but it was still really cool because that's the direction that I wanted them to go in. So hopefully that's where we end up going with this as well. And I think you said it perfectly before, Chris, about how like he's the god of mischief. He's notorious for the twists and the turns and stuff like that. And already the show is full of them. So. We'll see where they go with that. I do have to ask this, though, because I saw this as a big talking point among a lot of people. For whatever reason, I mean, everyone's going to have their own thoughts on it and fantasy theories and whatever. Are we headed towards a Loki, Sylvie, falling for each other type of situation? I don't think we are. I don't think that's necessary. But for whatever reason, people get into this idea that they see them together, see the chemistry, which I think is just because they're siblings and not because it's heading anywhere romantically. And I could be wrong, but... I'll start with you, Phil. Did you have any thoughts on that? Did you see anyone talking about that at all?
I didn't. I don't think they're going to be romantically linked. That just isn't a Loki. That doesn't seem like something they would do with Loki in their TV show. I do think like all of the love talk on the train is some connection to her enchantress powers. Because in the comics, the first enchantress, that's how she uses her enchantment to like, it's like a kind of a trick you into falling in love with her thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the whole reason they kept bringing it. She kept bringing it up. But I could be wrong.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know. That seems weird. Because if she is a Loki variant, then aren't you just kind of masturbating at that point?
It's bizarre. I mean, again, this is what people want to see. I'm not saying the overwhelming majority, but like this is what I mean. Anthony Mackie just got done talking about this in the interview, and I know we were talking about this over DM a while ago, but I don't know. I just don't think just because they have good chemistry on screen doesn't mean that we need to head towards like this romantically linked relationship. I mean, especially their brother and sister in some form or fashion, which would be fucking weird. But you know, everyone has their own thing, I guess. But I don't know. It's just I don't think we need to go there because I feel like we've talked about this before, Chris, with the movies and especially in the first phase. I feel like like there was always this romantic angle in every movie that they did. I don't feel like it's necessary. So I don't know. I guess if they go in that direction, whatever. I'm not a fan of it personally, but do you have any additional insight to that, Ben?
I mean, I think that's just people's inclinations in these three shows is to ship everyone, right? So Wanda and Vision, Sam and Bucky. So I guess it would just make sense to just throw it out there for Sylvie and Loki. But no, I mean, I don't see that. That's never been, or at least, you know, in the films, it's never really been a part of Loki's story. And I think it would be weird to kind of do that now, especially as Chris so poignantly put, with himself, basically. Which would be, I mean, it'd be weird, but I don't know. It's 2021. Why not? Well, I guess we could run it.
Exactly. I don't know if it would be run on Disney Plus per se, but you know what? Like you said, I don't even know. At this point, just expect the unexpected. Everyone can have their own opinions, but whatever happens, happens. I don't think we're going in that direction. But
I mean, there's enough people out there throwing opinions around about the minor reveal that he's bisexual.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I know we talked about this for a minute before we got going here, but like, why are people so up in arms about something that was already well established well before like this reveal came out? Like, I know this was the first time it's been said here on the show, but like that just doesn't make any sense to me. The whole uproar about it.
It's this fake pearl clutching stuff about, oh, they're trying to be woke and force LGBT characters down our throats. Like, no, that's not what's happening. Loki's been that way for a long time. That is who the character is, and it was a minor detail in like one line in a conversation about a bunch of other things. So it's not as if they even spent that much time dwelling on it. They were just like, yeah, that's part of the character. We can move on now. Mm-hmm. And that is how it should be. Like, it really shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
But for some reason, some people seem to think, oh, this is Disney bowing to the woke mob. And it's like, no, it's just Disney telling a story. If it makes you uncomfortable, the problem is yours.
Yeah. I don't understand. I mean, even if people have an issue with it, it was literally like a 2-second thing, and it wasn't even a major plot point. But even if it is, like, who cares? I don't know. I just don't really see the big deal there. But anything to add to that, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like a thing to establish his character more. Because, I mean,
yeah,
they threw a nod to the fact that he's gender fluid as well. Yep. So I don't. It doesn't seem like a big deal. I don't think we're gonna end this show with him like having this wild 3-way with like Mobius and Selfie. So like,
there was a lot of Loki and Mobius shipping after that first episode.
Yeah. No, I saw a lot of that, and it's like, I don't know. The Marvel fans and just people in general, there's going to be shipping and fanfic regardless, so just let those people enjoy their lonely love lives. I mean, it is what it is, but I don't think we're going there.
I'll tell you how all this happened. So, Arrow, the TV show,
yep,
they actually like paid attention to fans and were like, oh, people think Oliver should be with this Felicity character instead of the Black Canary, which is what's in the comics. So let's do that. And then they did it. And then it ended up making a lot of other people unhappy where they're like, well, now you're just saying fuck you to Katie Cassidy's character. And Felicity annoys some people because she's like the stereotypical like hot girl who's also a nerd for a couple seasons before they gave her more to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those things where it's like people were like, oh, Arrow listened to us and our ship became reality. So it's like the, restore the Snyderverse stuff. People just put stuff out there into the world hoping it'll happen, whether they think it's actually a good idea or not.
So we have Arrow to blame for this.
Kind of.
Any additional insight to this, Ben?
I'm just in on Phil's idea for a wild three-way to end this series. I think that would just light the internet ablaze, and we'd have things to talk about for the rest of time.
That's going to be that's going to be the X-rated version of Disney Plus. I think at the end of it's going to be like the post-credit scene that's only available if you have the account if you're older than 18.
It's going to be Disney X. They're just going to rotate the plus sign a little bit, and it's going to be an X.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's just like the final episode's on Hulu. Why?
Yeah, right. This is random, but going off of that, do any of you guys watch Rick and Morty at all or no?
I can't.
Phil, you don't watch the show?
I don't.
You don't, Ben?
I also do not.
Oh, okay. I'm alone here. I was going to say, because they ended the most recent episode with something along those lines, so that's what it made me think of. Don't even ask. It's a weird show. But just at any rate, moving on from that, I think that was the last thing I wanted to discuss was the minor reveal. That's all my major plot points. Was there anything else from this episode, Chris, that you wanted to discuss?
Just the whole Cobra uniform thing. I need to know if other people made that connection, because even the helmets look like the helmets from the cartoons with like the black visor over their face and stuff. I don't see how it wasn't kind of intentional.
It might have been. Maybe the writer was a big G.I. Joe fan.
I mean, I think he's of that age. The guy who runs the show doesn't seem like he's out of his 30s yet, so he would have grown up in G.I. Joe.
That would make sense. Maybe he drew inspiration from that. I would love to know. Yeah, like in an interview with one of these people, and everyone asks like all the obvious questions, like, "Oh, is Loki blah blah blah?" And then you just ask, "Listen, dude, this one scene from episode 3 is this based off of G.I. Joe?" Like, I just need to know.
Steal Cobra's outfits. Yeah, but yeah, seriously, it stood out to me immediately to the point where I looked on Twitter. I'm like, nobody's talking about this. What? Am I the only one who sees this?
It's gonna be like the most hidden Easter egg ever, Chris, and you found it.
Apparently.
I guess so.
Apparently there's like one crazy Easter egg in the first Guardians movie that James Gunn claims nobody has found yet.
Yes. I know people have come close. I've heard about that, but the movie came out 7 years ago. They still haven't found it yet, but
it's probably like a constellation in one frame of one shot looks like something or something stupid.
It's probably like the dumbest thing.
Obvious. Yeah.
It's probably like the stupidest thing. Like, I don't even know what it would be, but I'm sure it's incredibly dumb to the point where everyone's just missed it and we've looked at it the entire time. But yeah, I love James Gunn, though. I know they just came out with another trailer for Suicide Squad recently. It actually looks pretty good because the first movie was complete poop, but I think this next one is going to be good. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, anything else you guys want to discuss as we go off here? Because I know we went off on a tangent about Iron Man 2 and 3 last week, so I don't know if you guys have any other Marvel-related thoughts.
I'm kind of wondering, like, when I was sitting watching them talk on the train, one of the big things with the Enchantress from the Young Avengers arc is that she's not actually from Asgard, and she didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I was sitting, like, when he said, "Oh, you knew you were adopted," and she just almost didn't have an answer to it. I was like, I don't know. I almost feel like she is from Earth or something, and we're gonna find out that she's not Asgardian. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I also wouldn't be surprised if she's actually working for an older Loki variant.
Okay. That's an interesting theory. I could see them going that direction. Anything to add to that, Chris, or no?
She made one throwaway comment about like how she's been running from the TVA her whole life. So it seems like, whenever they decided she was a risk years ago or whatever. But then when she got to the TVA, that was clearly the first time she'd ever been there because she didn't realize her magic wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. She walked up to that guy and was like, "Oh." So I don't know. There's something weird about this character that I still can't put my finger on. And that's good, though, because, most of the things that we've speculated on before were either proved to be completely false or we were right. And with this character, it's like I can't even really form a theory about her because there's just not enough to go on yet.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see where they go with it.
I love that they mention the devil almost every episode now for all the Mephisto people out there.
My God. The Mephisto stuff, Jesus.
It's going to get to a point where it's talked about so much where everyone just fucking hates Mephisto and is like, this is trash, who cares? Like, they're not going to do it. And then they're going to do it in, like, The Hawkeye show or something like that, or something completely stupid.
I almost hope it's like Mephisto is one of those villains in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that they just easily defeat really quickly, just to be like a fun Easter egg for people to be like, oh, we waited all this time for Mephisto and he's just a bitch.
It's gonna be like one of those Vince McMahonisms, like, we gave you what you want, and then they just kill him off in like the first scene of the movie or something like that. So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's such good shit, pal.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
Total Snyderverse. Somebody just throws an axe at him, and he just like gets pulled off screen.
Oh, gosh.
That's a whole other discussion. And any other 2 cents, Ben, about really anything, Loki, Marvel, anything on your mind?
I just want to put out there that there's further proof that the TVA is fraudulent in that the temp ads, with all this technology, still need to be charged. We couldn't figure out an eternal battery on these things, and also they were having this much trouble finding a charger for it. Like, what is it, like an Android plug? Like, I don't understand why it took them this long to find anything, and they still haven't found it. By the way, still no charger for the temp ad. So
the temp ad's busted too.
It's also not broken. So, I mean, that's a whole other thing. We couldn't get a Mophie for this thing to charge it. It was very problematic for me, and just further proof that the TVA is full of shit. So I hope they get torn down ASAP.
Yeah, I haven't seen someone this frustrated about a charger since Apple came out with their new fucking iPhone. I completely agree with you, though. I mean, I totally understand that. I just these are the fucking questions that we need answers to. What's going on with the chargers? And hopefully they'll answer that. Yeah. Hopefully they could charge a damn thing in the next episode. But yeah, this has been great, guys. I look forward to doing it again. Ben, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really enjoyed your insight, and hopefully we can get you on again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can follow you on the Twitter machine at Cruz Control, and that's Control with a K, like you said earlier, C-R-U-Z, Control with a K.
The variant spelling.
Exactly, the variant spelling. And
wasn't that how they spelled it in Get Smart?
Oh man, is it? Man, so
yeah,
they took that. They stole that from me because they took that from me because I've had that since the beginning of Twitter. So me and Get Smart are gonna have to. The Get Smart writers are gonna have a conversation.
You mean that TV show from the 60s stole it from you?
Yes. It's, again, they went ahead in time, stole it from me, and then threw it back. So they're the real variant.
They spell it with a C. I just looked it up. Never mind.
Okay, there you go.
Are you sure you're not thinking of the remake with The Rock and the Great Khali, Chris?
I'm always thinking about. I'm thinking about anything with The Rock and The Rock at all times. So.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we just talked about one of The Rock's big franchises.
That's right. We
this
did.
Next movie.
The Rock's. What are you talking about?
When I appeared on Ben's podcast, we talked about Fast and Furious, but
right.
The movie specifically is that The Rock will not be in this next one.
Oh yeah, no, he won't be. Who's going to see it on Friday? Who's going to see it tomorrow? Nobody?
I mean, I already saw it, so I'm not going to go to the theater to see it.
Chris, you're killing me. You're not going to go see it in front of the big screen? It's Fast and Furious 9.
I mean, my local theaters was a Regal Cinema, so that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
so
shit.
I'd have to drive like 45 minutes just to get to a decent theater. And then, at that point, it's like, for a movie I already saw for free, I don't know.
Seeing John Cena as a heel isn't worth the drive?
I'm not going to say anything.
Wow. Well, I'm definitely going to go see it. I need to go see this 9th installment because the first 8 were not fast and were not furious enough for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing it tomorrow. But Ben, have you seen? Well, you just talked about the Fast movies with Chris, but are you going to see it on Friday?
So I'm actually traveling and going out of town tomorrow. But once I get to my destination, hunting down the nearest movie theater immediately. Because we're celebrating Fast and the Furious Week over on Vover.
Nice.
So that's all I've been talking about all week. And if I don't see it this weekend, I'm going to be really, really upset. I've put this ahead. I put this on our calendar.
Nice.
Mine and my wife's calendar like months ago. And unfortunately, something was still planned on top of it. But we came to a compromise, and I think we're going to find a theater where we end up, and we're going to watch it.
That's what I like to hear. Nothing is more important than Fast and Furious 9. This is the installment I've been waiting a whole year for. When COVID canceled it and delayed it, I was pissed. So, as a Cena fan myself, and Rock not being in this one, but, Rock's coming on in, or I'm sorry, Cena's coming on in to replace him in this installment. So, Chris, you've already seen it. I don't want to hear anything. Do not spoil it for me. I'm so pumped, and I don't
want to hear about when Optimus Prime shows up?
What the? God, Chris, you're killing me. I got to cancel. Now I got to cut that out from the episode. Oh, man, this has been great, though. So maybe next week we'll talk about it after I've already seen it. Hopefully Ben as well. And, maybe you could poop on it all you want if you didn't like it, Chris. Or you could praise it if you loved it. But don't tell me anything until next week.
No. It's a fun movie. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Okay, sweet. I'm going to actually go see it in the drive-in, I think. So hopefully it's just as fun as if I saw it in a theater. So we'll see. But you guys are on the... What'd you say, Chris?
At the drive-in. Movie about cars at the drive-in seems poetic.
I didn't even think about that, but you know what? I'm happy you said that because that makes a lot of sense. Now,
are you bringing Civic with like a souped-up exhaust and a spoiler?
I should. It's a double feature. It's F9 and Cars 3. So maybe I'm.
Oh man, they're like, we need another car movie to put with this.
Exactly. It's Cars Weekend, and that goes back to Owen Wilson and Loki and all this other shit. So
that's kind of brilliant, actually.
It's super smart. I now got to open my own drive-in and start doing that. Just play car movies because it makes too much sense to not do. But we'll talk about F9 a little bit next week, and obviously episode 4 of Loki. But Chris, you're on the Twitter machine at BR_Doctor. Phil, you are as well. Phil DL616. Chris, Phil, Ben, this has been awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.